Hey folks, my name is Rene Enriquez and you are watching Uncensored.
This is Rene Enriquez. Nickname Bootser. Blackhand of the Mexican Mafia. Prison gang politics.
My name is Rene Enriquez and you are watching Uncensored. So today we have a bit of a different episode for you, but it's a humdinger no less. Humdinger, humdinger, humdinger. So a lot has been said about MS-13, right? But nobody really knows the real story behind the conflict with Mara Salvatrucha, not MS-13. You'll note that in the feds, the Maras do not carry the 13. They're anti-ME. And how did that come about, right? First, let's go back for a little history, right? In one video in the hotel series, you remember Chuco Castro talking about Salvadorians burning a Mexican flag. Well, that's the genesis. But let's get to this. I looked up MS-13 because I'm no MS-13 gang member. I am not, MS-13 gang expert. I am not. The one thing I am not is a gang expert. In fact, in the multiple trials I testified in, defense attorneys always try to kind of nail me down on that. They try to ask me about specific gangs and the memberships and the initiation process. And I just answer, no, I don't know. I don't know. And they usually counter with, well, you're not too much of a gang expert, are you, if you don't know this and you don't know that and you don't know how many members are in this gang? And I tell them, no, I'm really not a gang expert. I don't know anything about that gang. So they think they're onto something, like they're discrediting me, right? It's a typical pitfall for a defense attorney. And I shouldn't really be saying this, but I'm going to, right? So they think they got me, like they're going to show the jury how much I don't know about gangs. So they go on a whole slew of questions, and all my answers are, no, I don't know. I don't really know. And they respond with, well, what kind of gang expert are you if you don't know about gangs? And I clarify, like, I am not a gang expert. Mr. Enriquez, you're here today as a gang expert. No, I am not. I am here as a Mexican Mafia expert and Hispanic subgang subculture as it relates to the Mexican Mafia, communications analysis, and prison subculture, right? Those are my areas of expertise, right? Communications, the prison subculture as it relates to the Mexican Mafia, particularly Sureños and Southsiders. But that's kind of mold is broken on that because Sureños and Southsiders are everywhere now. But that's what defense attorneys usually do. And I don't know much about MS-13. I don't. I'm going to be the first to admit that I don't. But I do know that there's history with the organization in MS-13. And we're going to cover that today. So let's get down and dirty with it, right? So I looked up Mara Salvatrucha, and it's commonly known as MS-13. It's a international criminal gang that originated in Los Angeles in California in the 1980s. Originally, the gang was set up to protect Salvadorian immigrants from other gangs in the Los Angeles area. Over time, the gang grew into a more traditional criminal organization. MS-13 has a long-time rivalry with 18th Street Gang. Many MS members were deported to El Salvador after the end of the Salvadorian Civil War in 1992, or upon being arrested, facilitating the spread of the gang to Central America. Like we know, MS-13 is everywhere, right? That's like a freaking like cockroaches. They multiply, right? The gang is active in many parts of the continental United States, Canada, Mexico, Central America. Most members are Central American, Salvadorians in particular. We know that there are chapters of this gang everywhere, including California Department of Corrections and the Federal Bureau of Prisons, right? We know that for a fact, right? So that's what I know about MS-13. I really know it's a gang in L.A. that originated as rockeros. They would do the little devil horns. They were rockeros, right? In fact, I talked to one guy, and he'll come up in a minute, and he told me a little bit about the history of the gang, how they were in Hollywood, and they originated there. I don't know how accurate this information is, but I was incarcerated with one of these individuals, and we're going to get into that in a second. But let's talk about this, the burning of the Mexican flag. Because the Mexican Mafia at one time put MS-13 on the hit list. They were on the green light list. There was a World Cup playoff event, and some dudes from MS-13 were seen burning the Mexican flag. And that did it. In fact, there's one episode in the hotel series where Chuco Castro specifically talks about this incident and why they're on the green light list. And when they were on the green light list in that era, so 18th Street, Crazy Riders, all those guys downtown started taking off on MS-13, and they got the blues. They really got the blues for doing this. This is like a public disrespect to Mexicans in Los Angeles. And Cardenales took it hard. Like, no, you're not going to do that. You're not going to be a hood, a Sureño hood, and do this. You're not going to do that. We don't care where you're from. You're going to get it, right? And they put it on them. And if my editor can find it, she will insert that video now. But if not, she will place a link to the overall hotel series so that you can go back and find it yourselves. Because it's there, folks. I remember hearing this specifically, and it was something to the organization. I mean, a lot of dudes got whacked over it. And that went on for a long time. MS-13 got dogged out, right? And I went back, I did a little backtracking of the time period, right? Because those meetings were held in about 1994, because the indictment came down in 1995. That's U.S. versus Alex Aguirre et al. That was a hotel meeting series. That's when the indictments came down, 1995, and they went to trial sometime after that. So Chuco was talking about that time period, and I went and looked it up. El Salvador and Mexico played each other 4 times in the 1990s. World Cup qualifying matches, twice for the 1994 tournament and twice for the 1998 tournament. Details for these matchups include April 4th, 1993, El Salvador won 2-1 World Cup qualifier for USA in 1994. April 18th, 1993, Mexico won 3-1 World Cup qualifier USA in 1994. June 8th, 1997, Mexico won 1-0 World Cup qualifier for France 1998. October 5th, 1997, Mexico won World Cup qualifier for France. So let's exclude these 3 right here. The first one, April 4th, 1993, when El Salvador won that World Cup qualifier and they burned the flag. This has to be the error right here. Or it could have been April 18th, 1993, when Mexico won and then MS-13 guys, out of anger, burned the flag. Don't know. It's got to be one of those 2 dates there that this occurred, right? Sometime around that general area is when it happened, and it really happened. In fact, I believe there were news clips of this happening. There was a news clip, and somebody saw it, and it came to the attention of the Cardenales, and immediately, boom, that happened. They got put on the green light list. This is when the green light list was in full swing. The whole neighborhood was targeted, and they were getting ridden on really seriously. That's when the Cardenales would tell all the reps from all the different gangs, go take off on that gang. And they would, because they no longer had like rivalries. This is kind of like a peace era too. There was kind of like a little peace thing going on where it was cool for rivals to hang out. And then they were doing missions specifically for the Cardenales. This is like unprecedented in the annals of the Hispanic gang subculture in Los Angeles, where gang members, 15, 16, 19, 18, 20, were getting orders directly from Mexican Mafia members, interacting with these dudes that were a mythological figure in their minds, right? Like Cardenales had never been known to the public before. And here they are sending these guys on missions to target a specific gang that they didn't like anyways. So they got their cake and they got to eat it too, right? And this is what happened, right? This is what happened, and this will put MS-13 on the green light list. Then, after a couple of years, this Perico Ochoa on the right, that's the Mexican Mafia member in the hotel series that talks about oppositionist. The oppositionist, the guy that just wouldn't shut the hell up when taking the vote for Pelon. That's him right there. That's Armando Ochoa from Primera Flats. Perico from Primera, right? Guy, just look, he looks bitter. He looks angry, right? He does. He really does. And he was, right? He was a guy who just always had to post up. And I think that made him feel powerful. Even though he never won a vote, he never won anything. He was always run over in the meetings and in the organization. He still did it because I guess it gave him self-worth. I don't know, but he did it, right? So Armando Ochoa ends up hooking up with this gentleman here. That's Comanche from MS-13. His name is Nelson Comandari. In fact, there was a book about his family and the influence they had. I think they were some kind of politicians and had some influence there. In fact, I knew Comanche quite well. He was with me. He was cooperating against MS-13 and the organization at one time. We were housed by the United States Marshals as cooperating witnesses in Alhambra PD. And it was there that he showed me pictures. He had like albino lions and Bengal tigers. And the guy was a businessman, right? And he hooked up with Armando Ochoa, Perico here, and probably gave him little tidbits of money because he realized Armando he never knew about money. He never had money. He never could do business. He was a simple dope fiend. That's really, in fact, he died in Corcoran after taking an overdose of drugs that were issued to inmates, other prescription drugs. He was taking pills, right? And he overdosed. So that's the kind of life he led. So I imagine that Nelson Comanche, being the progressive thinker that he was and the businessman that he was, because he was a businessman. He was a smart guy, right? Maybe not book smart, but he was street smart. He was product smart. He knew how to move and shake, right? He's seen an opportunity in Perico to take the light off his neighborhood, and he became really the spokesman, the rep for his neighborhood. And he kicked down Perico. Ochoa took care of him, probably tidbits of product, a little money here and there, made him feel good, stroked his ego a little bit, and boom, the green light came off. The green light came off. It really did. Nelson Comandari was able to arrange that. And it was through him that MS-13 came back into the fold and affixed the 13 to their hood, right? MS-13, right? That's when it became real. I think it was before they had the 13, but that's when it became real. They became real camaradas. And they became part of the organizational fold. And there's quite a few individuals now that are MS that are involved deeply in the organizational politics. But we're going to get to that in a minute. But this is when it happened, when they came off. So this had to have been somewhere around 1995 during those meetings. After Chuco had voiced his displeasure, Perico attended or got it off somehow. Because I don't see it recorded in the meetings at all, where the green light comes off. Only when they're talking about the event of the flag burning. But there's another guy. Since that time, they made Nelson Alexander Flores. He's a Salvadorian. He has the accent, got that little twang in his voice. In fact, I've run a couple of calls on him. In fact, the most recent one I did between him and old Uncle Fester. Yeah, you can hear him. You know, he speaks like Salvadorian. He's got that twang in his voice. But Nelson was in Mexico, and he was the main guy there, right? For a long time, Nelson was the main guy. And he was moving large amounts of product, doing really well over there. He had insinuated himself with some cartels and was moving product to the United States. In fact, this is a DOJ release here that I just copied and pasted from. August 9th, 2023, San Diego, Nelson Alexander Flores of Tijuana was sentenced in federal court to 210 months in prison for trafficking large quantities of methamphetamine into the United States from Mexico on behalf of MS-13 street gang and the Mexican Mafia prison gang. So he started doing this. He started getting it out to his homeboys in the hoods, not just the MS, but MS-13 as well, because he became the primary link. He's a made guy sending product to MS-13 all over. According to the information presented in court between 2018 and May 2020, Flores coordinated with and supplied with pound quantities of methamphetamine from various sources in Mexico, which it was then distributed throughout the United States. This defendant was responsible for moving more than 100 pounds of methamphetamine and cocaine a month on behalf of a violent international street and prison gang, said Acting U.S. Attorney Andrew R. Hayden. He imported these drugs into San Diego from Mexico before they were sent to poison other communities throughout the United States. We were proud to partner with this Joint Task Force Vulcan, in this prosecution to fight back on behalf of the Southern District of California and our nation. That's the San Diego District right there. Southern District is that area down there, right? So they prosecuted him, they sent him to prison, and poof, Nelson's in the feds now. So they made their first MS-13 guy, right? And this is a smart move. It's co-opting an entire organization, MS, right? That's a smart move for a businessman. You're going to co-opt this organization with tens of thousands of members, and it's an international organization, right? It's an international terrorist gang. It would be smart to make some guys from MS-13. That's the whole objective. Or we get a couple reps there. They can communicate directly with their homeboys in different countries. They can communicate to all their homeboys in the United States because they got chapters in almost every state of the United States. Virginia, Washington, Portland, you name it. South Dakota, they got MS-13 guys everywhere. Those guys just pop up, and you'll see them throwing their little devil horns, right? And this was a smart move for the organization. And Nelson was doing it right. When Nelson had it, after they came off the list, and he was the main go-to guy for MS, he was communicating with El Salvador guys. He was communicating with guys in the United States, and he had this thing wired, right? But after he got busted, something went awry. Something went awry. And then there was this guy. He got made in the county jail in the 2010 or something, like 2012. 2000 something, right around then. And you might remember this call here because he was made, and then some product came up missing. So you may remember the call between, this is little one, Luis Vega, right? That's the guy, little one from MS. And we've heard him in a couple of calls before with a couple of people, right? And I run him on the Wiretap series. He's been on here. You've heard his voice. But you've also heard Rube Soto here in this corner and Mike Boo, right? You've heard them talk. So let's listen to this audio and see what they talk about Little One here. Little One gets in after Mula. He's in the county jail. He has direct contact with MS-13 gang members, but something went wrong for Little One.
Yeah. Hey. Have you talked to Cholo lately?
Yeah. Yesterday.
Did he tell you about Lalo? Oh no, did he tell you about Lalo?
No. But what?
That everything's the A-OK right there. They talked on the phone and
He talked to him
with his right hand.
So the person that they're speaking about is Cholo Morra. Cholo Morra was also made by Rube Soto. Rube Soto used to go around making multiples. Not one guy, but 2 or 3 guys at a pop, right? Leaving brothers, just dropping brothers everywhere. I think he was already in the early stages of dementia, or he thought that his position was so well solidified that he could make brothers everywhere he went. Because he did it in the feds, he did it everywhere. And every one of those people, down to the very last one, ran into controversy. So if you see Rube somewhere, and he wants to sponsor you into the organization, he wants to be your padrino, to say, nah, bro, I'm good. Be sure, because you're going to hit controversy, bro. And you're going to get sat down. You might even get whacked out. So let's hear the rest of this call.
And Lalo sent it, and then Lalo, he sent Lalo a telephone number to call him on. But he said, Lalo said, everything's cool, that he embraced, the new Carnales, and that he's going to be on the same page with us.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. They sent message. They spoke with Lalo's spokesman. They spoke with a spokesman. That doesn't sound right. They spoke with somebody that represented Lalo in the county jail, and he's going to embrace the new Carnales. The new Carnales that they're speaking of are the guys that Rube Soto had made. And I believe Little One was one of these guys that he made. I could be mistaken. Don't call me on this. But there was a whole gob of dudes made at that time. There was Little One, Dreamer from MS. There was Cholo from East Locos or something. And there was Bam Bam from Paramount, I believe he was from. I'm not sure what gang he was from. I think it was Paramount. That's what always comes to mind when I think about that guy. And that was it. Those 4 guys in this general period that were made. And Rube is getting them accepted by LA County Jail. And Lalo they're talking about is Eulalio Martinez. That's the guy who was running the county jail at the time. All important to have that kind of support, county jail support, in making new Carnales.
And that they got Little on the shine.
Yeah.
Little.
So they got Little on the shine, right? I made a mistake there. I clicked ahead. So they got Little on the shine. So Little One was made and then they put them on the shine. In other words, they put them on disregard. This is a common practice now. Whereas before, they would woo you in, you'd still be a cardenal, and boom, 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 boom. They would eliminate you, right? But they wouldn't tell everybody about it. They wouldn't go spreading it around. Now they do. Now that's the thing. As soon as somebody's voted out, like, okay, that dude's on the lista. Okay, put him on the shine, disregard him, let's take his territory. That's it. That's the new function right now. So this is exactly what they're talking about. This little one from MS-13 who was made and then got stripped. So something went awry after Mullah. They try to make this guy, which is it's another good move, right? The wrong guy, right intention, wrong subject, right? So for the Cardenales making MS-13 guys, I would have made 3 or 4 of them just to ensure that we had backup and insinuated ourselves into that network of gangs throughout the United States. That's a huge power move. I mean, if you look at it with the macro view, not this micro view, don't look at it like this. Look at it like this. Look at what it would have done for the organization, right? We're talking about the transnational spread of Mexican Mafia influence all the way to El Salvador and the other countries, Guatemala, Peru, Paraguay, all the places they have MS-13 gangs. Particularly if those MS-13 Mexican Mafia members had fostered those relationships so they could see the organization as beneficial to them rather than detrimental. And Mullah was doing that. Mullah made them feel included. It was an inclusive organization. They had say-so. They had backup. They had representation. But something went awry. Something went really bad between the relationship of MS and Mexican Mafia. First, there was Coco Zaragoza. Coco Zaragoza is a Mexican Mafia member. Anthony Zaragoza, Mexican Mafia member from 18th Street. In fact, I remember this guy. When I was in Central Detention Center, because the marshals have contracts everywhere in all these different facilities, and when they don't like you, or they don't have a place for you, they throw you in these dungeons like MDC and West Valley Detention Center, and they suck balls. They really suck. They're horrible places, right? Well, I remember seeing Coco. He was a porter or a tier tender, right? We'd come out, we'd pass out the food, we'd do the trays, we'd sweep the tier, clean the shower. He was a porter for the bottom tier, which was, oh my God, K North, I think, or K South, I'm not sure. One of those in Central Valley Detention Center. And I was upstairs. So the only thing that separates us is like bars, an electronic door. So he would glare at me all the time. Because him, T-Bug Moreno from Norwalk, and a couple of other cardenales were down there when I was housed there. And in fact, this guy used to glare at me like I knew he was ready. His job was to eliminate me. And my job was to defend myself. And I was ready. In fact, I used to put this, we had these scrubbers, these solid scrubbers about this big, and I'd hide them in the shower. And when we turn on the tools, I just leave it out and hide it in the shower. And then we had little razor blades stashed everywhere, little slashers. But this guy, Ruben Palomar, is one of my buddies. He's a former LAPD guy, very religious guy, right? He would go and turn up the stuff in, right? I don't know that he turned in razors, but he would turn in my head knocker. It was about that big with a big old head on it, right? And you could have cracked somebody's head wide open with that thing. Now, I'm not talking about just cutting them. I'm talking about eliminating them. You could have eliminated them with it. And that's why I had it out there for this guy or any other person that the door opened up on, right? Because I was fresh out of the organization. I was a hot topic and a hard target to get a hold of. And here I am living with these guys, seeing them on the same tier every day. And you can bet your bottom dollar they were gunning, they were ready. They probably had pedazos on them every time they're outside of the cell. And if the door opened up, they were ready. So I had to be ready. But I remember he used to glare at me, right? He used to glare at me all the time. He wasn't made then, but he probably would have got made if he would have whacked me. Because he was well on his way. A lot of cardenales had spoken about him. In fact, we ran a call where Rube Soto actually talks about Coco to Mike Moreno and talk about him being made in the feds, and they wanted Rube and Mike Booz a vote on it, and they both gave a positive vote. He was made. So on June 15, 2020, at USP Lee at 15:08 hours, Coco Zaragoza and his cellie were stabbed. By who? By who, you ask? By MS gang members in the BOP. In Lee County, Virginia, that's feds, right? So these MS-13 guys went and raised a hand to a carnal. I mean, stabbed him up pretty bad. There are photos that exist of the crime scene, and I will get them for you as soon as I can. It was a bloody mess. He's lucky he came out alive, and his cellie. But they did. They came out alive, but this is a blow. For a gang within inside the BOP or anywhere to raise its hand against the carnales is sacrilegious. That's like war. That's war. You can't even, there's no equivocation. It's war. It's war. You opposed the authority of the organization and you tried to kill a member. What do you think the organization was going to do? Right? Immediately, they were isolated. They were isolated and separated in a nationwide lockdown. The first time in history in the Bureau of Prisons, Federal Bureau of Prisons, that this occurred. They locked all the prisons down, all the FCIs, everything got locked down until they could isolate MS-13 gang members away from Mexican Mafia members. Then about a year later, they start releasing them back out incrementally, MS-13 guys, right, in different places, right? And they release 2 over here to USP Victorville. And La Carnales, Shy, depicted on the left, and Champ Mendez are there, along with Pee Wee Aguirre. They tell, the administration comes to them and says, hey, we know what happened up there at Lee with Coco Zaragoza. Is it cool? And Shy and them do the right thing. They say, yeah, well, it's cool. Let them out. That's it. That's over with. That's done with. It was a misunderstanding. They're going to kill the MS-13 gang members. They already have people waiting, right? These guys are in the shoe, the MS-13 gang members, and as soon as they come to the yard, they're going to get whacked out. Shy did the right thing. Champ did the right thing. Pee Wee did the right thing. They were going to rub them out. No question about it. They were going to get got. And those guys were going to come out, but there were informants among the Sureños and Camaradas there that went and told SIS, the Special Investigative Service, and the SIA, the Special Investigative Agent for the BOP, that this was going to happen. So what did they do? They snatched up those 2 guys and put them on a midnight express to another prison. They shipped them out immediately, right? They shipped them out. And then they took Shy and Champ and Pee Wee and sent them to AdMax, actually, in Florence, Colorado. As a result of that, just for having that much Jews plotting to kill these guys, they had enough of these guys. They said, okay, you know what, enough of you guys. You're going back to AdMax. And that's where they went. They sent them out. They put all the MS-13 guys in Big Sandy and Canaan. That's where all MS, they're not even MS. They don't even claim the 13. They're not even Sureños. They claim Mara Salvatrucha. They don't use the 13 because there's a different faction out there. There's the East Coasters and there's a Salvadorian crew, right? And those are the guys that at war with the Mexican Mafia right now. They are at war with the Mexican Mafia. Only a couple shots have been fired. They've all been fired from the MS guys. Mexican Mafia hasn't busted a grape, and that's the truth. That's the truth. So what's wrong with that picture? I mean, I'm seeing something shift here. I'm not the brightest guy in the room, but I see something definitely wrong with the organization. If they cannot retaliate against individuals who raise their hand against the organization, something is distinctly wrong in the organization. I think that it's possible that the organization came to enjoy its position in the general population yards and didn't want to sacrifice that and hesitated when they needed to jump most. That could be a real reality. There may be another objective. I don't know. I don't know what that objective is. And I don't profess to know. I think there's so many variables in this that it just makes the organization look weak. The Mexican Mafia. MS-13, bravo for them. They stood up. It shows what? The organization is fallible. That people can take off on the Mexican Mafia, and they do bleed. They're not immune to being attacked by other people who they once controlled. And I think this is foretelling. This is what I really believe. It's foretelling. A few gangs have done it. And we're going to do a whole episode on that. But Maravilla was one of them. Lowell was another one. There are a few people who have done it. In fact, the NF. they stood up to the organization. We're going to do a whole episode on that too. And I'm going to correct all the errors I made in that first NF episode. But this is a huge indication for the organization that it got moved on and couldn't do anything about it, or didn't do anything about it. But did they have the opportunity before these guys were isolated? That's the big question. That's the elephant in the living room, right? That's what's in front of us right here. Did they have the opportunity to do it? Did they have the opportunity to do it? Yes, they did. In fact, in Beaumont, Texas, USP Beaumont, 7 MS-13 gang members in Texas were charged with the murders and attempted murders of rival gang members inside the U.S. penitentiary in Beaumont. Officials say the members of La Mara Salvatrucha attacked rival gang members on January 31st, 2022. In the not-too-recent past, the victims, Rojas, died as a result of the prison attack. He was inflicted with multiple stab wounds to his heart and lung. Likewise, Pineda died as a result of the prison attack. He suffered more than 45 distinct stab wounds to his body. Sureño member 1 was stabbed multiple times and taken to a hospital by emergency services as a result of the prison attack. Sureño number 2 was also stabbed numerous times. Both victims ultimately survived the attack by MS-13 defendants. So here in Beaumont, after Coco had been whacked, after Shy and Champ and Pee Wee attempted to get those guys in Victorville and failed at it, Sureños of position, like one of the Sureños that got eliminated was on the cusp of being made a carnal. These were real Sureños, right? Knowing that the organization had been assaulted by MS-13 or MS, right? And they stabbed a carnal. It's war. It's already been declared. They've been separated and isolated, but they brought them back together in this process during the same period that Shy and Champ and Pee Wee had those two guys in ADSEG and they were going to be released. They're going to whack them. This happened. Boom! MS gets off again. They kill 2 camaradas and stab 2 other camaradas. Now, call me crazy, but as soon as you get to a yard and it's filled with the guys that you know you're sworn to kill, you should get to eliminating people. You should. I mean, that's the old mentality. Like, I don't care if there's 1 of me or 3 of me, and, we're going to do something. We're going to run into the crowd of them and just, get the swinging. And there's going to be some chopping going on. But that didn't happen. They had every opportunity with 4 individuals, 4 camaradas on the same yard. They allowed themselves to be eliminated. The second huge blow. First they hit a carnal. Then they hit a guy who's going to be made a carnal, another camarada, and kill those guys both, and hit 2 other camaradas. Boom. This is a huge indication that something's wrong. Huge indication that something's wrong within the organization. It's not the monolithic powerhouse that it once was. I mean, I'm just looking at it for what it is, right? Organization is not infallible. It's not omnipotent, which means all powerful, and all able. It's not. You got to keep in mind these guys are just men. Just like you and me, every day. They sit down on the toilet just like us. They put their pants on one leg at a time. And they're men. And I think some people have just reached the point where they oppose this kind of tyranny. Because there is tyranny going on within the organization. How many camaradas have been washed up? How many people have fallen by the wayside? Look at the guys that did that thing with that elimination with Tonito. Both of them got washed up. After they were told directly by the carnales to do it. And how many other horror stories have you heard? Well, MS was wise enough to say, you know what, nah, chale, we're not going for it. And this is the end result of that. They're never coming off of that lista. But there again, they're winning the war. Why would they be concerned with it? Like, they can hit carnales at will, eliminate camaradas at will. They're winning that damn war. I mean, you got to look at it for what it really is. And I have no dog in the fight, right? I mean, if the MN was winning, I say, oh, the MN defeated them. But no, they're kicking the MN's ass right now with 2 major blows. 2 major blows. And that's how it really is. I don't know what the outcome of this is going to be. I don't think there's ever going to be a peace treaty on this. I think it's gone too far. The lines in the sand have been drawn. But I think the organization made a distinct error when this occurred, right? I think the Fed should have contacted the state and told the state, hey, check this out. You have all those MS homies over there that have communication with some of these guys. Tell them that we're going to whack them all. We're going to put them all on the green light list if they don't demand that their homeboys serve up the heads of the individuals responsible for this. And that's all it would have took, like that. If the MA would have flexed when it needed to, if it would have flexed, like a major flex, and boom, 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 knock down some MS-13 guys here in the West Coast, camaradas or not, it had to be done. It had to be done in order for them to maintain that ferocity and that position within the prison gang hierarchy. They had to do it. I think that was a fatal flaw because West Coast carnales, state carnales said, no, these are camaradas. We're not going to do that, right? We're not going to target these guys. That was a fatal flaw. I don't even know that it was proposed by the feds, but that's what the feds should have done. Said, brothers, they struck us. We cannot strike back. You have to strike for us and strike these guys and demand that they deliver the heads of these other individuals responsible. That was the move. That's how I see it as a tactician. As wrong as it is to throw some camaradas under the bus and sacrifice them, they had to sacrifice them for the good of the organization. And I know that sounds oxymoronish, right? That sounds counterintuitive, right? These are your camaradas, these are individuals that sometimes camaradas fall by the wayside. Sometimes carnales fall by the wayside, right? It's just the nature of this beast. And it's brutal to say that, but it's the reality of it. This is a brutal, brutal organization, and they should have made a brutal move once this happened. Brutal. Like, we're not tolerating this from anybody. In fact, boom, West Coast guys, whack them. That's what they should have did. But they did not. They faltered and let themselves be victimized again after being victimized. Coco being whacked. That's saying something, folks. I mean, if you really think about it, look at it in its totality, right? Look at this in its totality. This is the organization faltering. It's faltering. It's stutter-stepping. Why? I don't know. I don't doubt the ability of any of the carnales in the feds to do this. I just don't know why those camaradas faltered. Because they had every opportunity to eliminate people and they didn't. Maybe lack of communication, lack of direction, lack of leadership, since that federal commission fell apart. Don't know. I don't know, and I don't suppose to know. I don't propose or insinuate that I know. I think there's so many variables here that a lot of people are still scratching their heads about this, and nobody's really covered it to this depth, right? They've talked about it. Oh yeah, this, that, yeah. They see on a news clip or whatever. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about going into the heart and mind of the organization, what it should have done, what it needs to do. But that ship has sailed already. MS-13 is up to, it's 2-0. The score is 2-0. And the MS is still, unable to do anything. Unable. There's a reality here that on January 20th, 2025, President Donald Trump signed an executive order initiating the process to designate various drug cartels and transnational gangs, including MS-13, as foreign terrorist organizations, FTOs, right? The order was officially enacted on February 20, 2025, making such groups officially terrorist organizations. That's anybody who has associations with transnational drug organizations or cartels can be designated this. And you see what's happening to these guys. They're being sent to Sequot, and they're getting dogged out over there. That's like the dungeon, right? I've seen a bunch of video clips that I did want to include here because they're other people's stuff, right? Well, they're getting beans. That's what they get for dinner, beans. And that's it. That's all they get. And they got forced workouts. They got to wear masks. They got to line up nuts to butt. They got to sit down nuts to butt. It's crazy. There's like 20 of them in one cell. It's kind of crazy. But this is coming. This is coming for all gangs as a result of MS. So there's a big shift, right? There's a big shift coming. But that's this spiel on this issue, folks. All about MS-13 and MS versus the Mexican Mafia. Can the Mexican Mafia recover from this? What do you think? And what do you think the future is of the organization? With all these other gangs. Other gangs that have risen up on them. Other gangs that have dared to raise a hand to the Black Hand. As MS-13 did. All right, folks. I hope you have a wonderful Memorial Day. For all you guys who have served out there, peace. I mean, we owe you a huge debt of gratitude. It's because of you individuals who have served this country. And I don't care what your political position is. it doesn't matter at this point. But those who have served give us the ability to do what we do. For you to drive the car that you drive, to make the money that you make, to go out and have a beer, have freedom of speech, the right to vote. No matter what political flavor that's yours, right? Whatever you are, whatever your political affiliation, you got to give it up to our veterans, to those men who are serving and those men who have served. Hundreds of thousands have given their lives for this country. So for you guys, I salute you. I salute you and I thank you. Thank you each for your service. All right, folks, we're out. Peace.
This is Rene Enriquez. Nickname Boots.